jazz, again, was jazz dancing on the surface, but striving to tell a much more profound and important aspect of the teenagers' attitude toward life today.
Being a dancer with this group of people, you go through struggles, you go through happiness, you go through times where you just want to be crazy, and I think all of that is in this ballet.
I mean, much like all the other things that Jerry did, it was this awesome group of, young dancers getting together, as if you were just like friends hanging out, fooling around, teasing one another.
They have the music, they have movement, and they have New York City to kind of go out there and find out who they really are.
I think that Opus Jazz was a kind of abstraction of West Side Story.
No one before or since, I guess you could even say, has incorporated street vernacular into dance to the same extent that Robbins has.
Jerome Robbins was the life force. How exciting is that, to be challenged by that mind?
Right now, my ballet seems to be very open and available to everyone. I mean, I don't want all the works just to disappear when I go.
Opus Jazz was one of, the very first things I did, kind of with the older dancers. My mom owns a dance studio at home, and so pretty much as soon as I could walk, I was dancing.
When I first got in, I was just really sort of cocky. You end up being sort of the top of the school, and then you get into a company, and you're then the bottom of the company.
I know this is what I want to do. This is what I love. It makes me happy, to be able to express myself on stage.
I always felt like dancing was my way of getting stuff out of my body, the frustrations of life, of being a young adult, of not having a boyfriend, and all of these things that a young girl has. In New York City Ballet, we rehearse from 12 to 6 every day, and then we have the performance at night, which now I'm used to, but in the beginning I was like, how am I gonna get through this?
When I moved to New York, after the day's lessons, we were lucky enough to walk right across the plaza from the dormitories and see New York City Ballet every night. And at least once a night, there was a Robbins ballet.
With the Robbins rep, it's about sort of relating to everybody around you. You're not really ever performing to an audience.
You're not just like an abstract figure most of the times in his work. You're a real human with real feelings.
Jerry never had that great a reputation, oh, he's a real booby baby and you will be loved and taken care of. Quite the contrary. But I was in love with what I was learning and what I did. How I became a part of Ballets USA, I'm sure everyone has exactly the same story. He called us up on the phone and said, come over here.
Ballets USA was filled with people dancers. Everybody was an individual. And I think that was very different than ballet companies that we're familiar with.
We were an unorthodox group. We were just different sizes, different shapes. We came from different companies. We didn't follow the rules, but not by choice, but by nature.
Well, I think there was a time when the State Department sponsored tours of particular artistic events as a kind of American propaganda, a way of sharing our culture.
We were all going to this place called Spoleto. The first trip, we were on this plane, and then the plane broke down, and we misbehaved. From sheer excitement and enthusiasm.
The title of the festival was Il Festivale Due Mondi, Festival of the Two Worlds. It was supposed to be America and Europe. And the Europeans found that wildly and immensely appealing.
I mean, they just look at us like we'd come from another planet.
The applause went on for over 20 minutes.
And people carried us through the streets.
It was just the big thing that took place in dance in 1958 in Europe was Ballet USA.
We toured to Trieste, the World's Fair, Belgium, all of those crazy places. was a new and exciting experience for all of us.
Now here for the first time ever on TV, here is the Jerome Robbins Ballet. It conquered the world and did so much good for America, with all typical American kids dancing in it. It's called formally New York Export Opus Jazz.
Sullivan had never seen anything like it. The amount of rehearsal time, all that. He directed that. All that camera work is by Jerry Robbins. It's having the cameras on the floor as opposed to just off stage height. To get that, back in those days. Have you ever seen what TV cameras looked like back in that time? They were the size of a Volkswagen. But you can imagine, Ed Sullivan was not used to that. People just came and they had a 3-camera, and the guy at the control booth just switched things back. Not when Jerry went. He wanted to show the thrust and power of that moment by way of the camera designs.
I thought it was amazing to have this ballet made in the 50s and to have blacks and whites together on stage, dancing, going through the same things. That was really not heard of back then.
To have something captured forever is always scary, but that's what's so cool about it.
We're the same age as the cast that premiered it.
Wow, this looks like Rome, doesn't it? This is really exciting. It's sort of like when we went to Spoleto. We didn't know what to expect. Boy, is this deja vu or what? It's a really emotional impact for me. It really is. Like, you look like us, you know? And I love the fact that, you know, that if your knees were skinned, cool. You know, that's...
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. It's a language you understand forever. If you get them, you've got them forever, which is wonderful, I think. It's no longer about dance, it's about you. If they can really get that, you know, funky, dark feeling, they've got it. Now, heavy-footed.
I had the fortune of resetting it with New York City Ballet. That means I took the original steps and I tried to get the original intent of the ballet on dancers of today.
Leave that like you did in the first movement.
Okay.
Everything he does, you'll see in every ballet. And this you do 3 or 4 times in this ballet.
Fast forward 40 years, the times are different. The feeling is different. I try to give them that, what Jerry gave me.
I was just an understudy. I think I wasn't even going to be in the ballet when Eddie was first setting it. The next Tuesday when casting went up, I was on casting to do statics for Opus Jazz. This is the very first time I'd ever been on principal casting. It was just super exciting.
I really wanted her to do this because she was the only one that could portray that particular part. If it meant for her to, you know, come out of the court of ballet to do it, that's what it meant.
Sean and I met at the School of American Ballet. We've been best friends for about 10 years. When Opus Jazz was staged, we were just comfortable in our skins, finally, after the initial rocky period when you first get in the company.
Pretty soon after we learned and performed the ballet, we developed the idea to make it into a film.
We kind of just wanted the company to get out there in a way that we hadn't quite seen them before.
I didn't think that we could have this kind of equipment, this kind of, production. I didn't think that that was possible.
Things don't really change that much. What was resonant for kids then is still resonant for kids now. It's impossible not to think about West Side Story when you're talking about the work of Jerome Robbins and adapting it to film.
The transformation of my vision of this ballet came reading about Jerome Robbins and his life. I always feel like I'm trying to live up to what Jerome Robbins would have wanted his work to be.
A lot of the locations were inspired by the original stage backdrops, which were designed by Ben Shawn. The kind of shapes of the backdrop suggested certain real-life locations.
The thing about those sort of abandoned spaces is just kind of, to me, had something to do with like the regeneration of the same issues. Every space has sort of been taken. You have to build on the ruin of something else. You have to build on what came before you, even when you're trying to carve out your own artistic space. It's not like any other ballet or jazz scores I've ever heard. It's really abstract, and it works perfectly for the sort of abstract/narrative hybrid that Opus Jazz is.
What my role is on the film is keeping the choreography intact. I find in Robbins' work, he creates this community. As a ballet master, I have tried to keep that kind of feeling.
There are certain passages in the choreography I just feel like I know what he meant, without ever having met him. And I feel like that's almost more pure because I've only gotten to know him through his work.
Well, I think that for a dance to endure, it needs to be able to survive distortion. There needs to be something so emblematic in its structure, in how it's made, that it can endure the differences in the culture of the moment, the culture of the time, changing values.
If we are going to try to have this art form survive, we can only apply it to our world and how our world is changing.
I hope he'd be proud to see young people still enthusiastic about his work.
He'd be really happy we didn't compromise. He knew quality, he cared about quality, and it showed in everything that he did. He went that extra mile.
When the body yearns to really speak, and you find someone who can give you the language, give you the subjects, give you the heart, give you the soul, how lucky.